I love the talk around nature versus nurture from a psychological standpoint, but also because it's Mother's Day. And I think it's just a cool concept and things to be mindful of that we may overlook. Guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all. Stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah. I've been saying that phrase for August will be 6 years. How crazy is that? And I still forget it. And it's just so cool. I was talking to my buddy a couple of days ago about the fact that this is coming up on 6 years and what it all means to me, like the significance of it being 6 years. They say if friendship lasts 7 years, then it's gonna last a lifetime. And I think I used to believe that. And then as I've gotten older, as I've, worked on myself and understood what actually makes a friendship, that's not true. How the relationship is taken care of in those 7 years will determine whether or not it's going to continue to last. Because, 7 years is enough time and effort put into a relationship to nurture a relationship, and how you take care of it will determine the outcome. 7 years could be that point where you just realize, oh, we're not really friends, or we just know each other, or we have common interests, or our relationship exists because I'm willing to overextend, right, go the distance, etc. So it's interesting, and I think it does come down to what today's episode I was thinking about today, in terms of nature versus nurture, right? That whole concept. Is it in your nature to be caring and considerate, or are you nurtured? And I think sometimes it can be both, especially for all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. I've noticed that even it's so interesting with parenting. It's a difficult job. And I say job because that's what it is not a full identity. It's an aspect of a person. The reason why I say that is because not everybody who reproduces is actually able to parent their kids in a way that creates a healthy adult, or an adult with a healthy esteem, or a kid with a healthy esteem, or a kid that feels safe in their environment, all that stuff. You just had a kid. And that doesn't always come with the ability to raise that child because you haven't really taken the time to parent yourself, right? And then there are some people who don't have children and are very nurturing, right? Motherly, caring, sensitive, considerate, thoughtful, all those things. And it's such a cool, realization, because there can be this hierarchy that gets thrown around. Somebody may say to a person, oh, you wouldn't understand because you don't have children. And it's like sometimes you don't know why a person doesn't have a child. You have no idea what is the reason behind them not having the child. Some people were parentified, right? Where they had to raise their siblings. And now they're like, yeah, I don't want kids because I did the job already. Or some people had to take care of their parents. or someone else. Like they were already responsible for parenting and nurturing other people. And this is out of, take gender out of it, although women historically are tasked with being the parent, right? Parent of the world, of the community, all the things. And sometimes later in life, it's like, damn, I spent my entire life taking care of other people, and I don't even know what taking care of myself looks like. The idea of that feels like a betrayal to everybody else, right? And that's where the people pleasing comes in. That's where the codependency comes in. That's where the lack of self-worth comes in. That's where the tolerance of poor behavior comes in, right? It leaves the door open for a lot of things when you are a very nurturing person without the understanding and practice of boundaries and self-respect and self-worth. You know, when I talk about concepts and principles on my video, sometimes somebody goes, well, what if they're your kid or whatever? I'm like, what if they are your kid? They're a person and they're an adult. And I think a lot of times it's nuance, right? Because that's your child, right? And then nature versus nurture comes in. Somebody can be raised in a very healthy home and still turn out, very different. It is like, wow, what do I do about that? And it is an interesting dynamic to dance in for sure. And I think, there's a lot of things I speak to, a lot of things I don't speak to, and a lot of things I don't even feel like I have to defend sometimes because I'm like, this person is not looking to necessarily understand. They're looking to be heard, understood, or at least vindicated. So it's very one way. And I think even that is a way in life to navigate when it comes to taking care of yourself. What are you showing up to? You don't have to show up to everything that you're invited to. And you can leave room. You can let people figure out their own conclusions, and you can let people take care of themselves, especially adults. A lot of times I think even in conversation when we feel the need to go back and forth, etc., is like that's an adult on the other end. And there's nothing that you're necessarily going to say in that moment that's going to change their whole character and change their entire modality of operation, their brain function and everything. It takes a lot of work to change your brain. A lot of work, a lot of discipline, a lot of consistency, a lot of repetition of behavior. And not everybody you meet is doing that, right? It requires nurturing, nature versus nurture. And in psychology, that concept of nature versus nurture, it's like what's in somebody's nature to do? What are they nurtured to do? And I think it's important to learn what it means to self-parent, right? What it means to nurture yourself, how that looks, and even in small ways. It was crazy the other day. I had just came home from the gym, and I go through these phases, and I don't know if it's the weather changing or if my workouts change, whatever, but I go through these phases where my appetite really changes, and certain things that I was usually eating regularly now, um, the idea of it, I'm like, yeah, no, that's not habit. I'm not really a creature of habit in certain ways, and then other ways, very consistent. And I I made like an acai bowl, and it was so fire. I was like, damn. I was like, this is delicious. This is great. And I was like, man, Isaiah, what are you doing, sir? This is great. And it really is in those moments that you just learn how you take care of yourself. You really learn how you take care of yourself. And I think consideration is such a big component of life. How people consider you outside of their convenience, right? Consideration is a big component of, being a nurturing person. And it's hard to say. I think it is to some degree in our nature, certain people's nature, to be very considerate. And the reason why I say that is not the person that's always telling you how good of a person they are. It's the person that's showing you, right? A good person doesn't need to constantly tell you how good of a person they are. They just are. And um, I think babies are a good representation of that. I'll never forget, there was one time I was holding my nephew and I was having like a rough day. I was just, man, it was just rough. And I was holding my nephew and he just looked at me, and he was a baby at this point. He was probably about one, if not. Yeah, I think it was his 1 year birthday. And literally, he looked at me and then just gave me a hug. And I was like, whoa. you know? And I'm grateful because his parents, are very, very sweet. But it was just one of those things where it was in him to just respond to it. And I was not expecting that. But when he did it, it shocked me. It shocked his parents. They were just like, whoa. And, for me, that's how I understand it is in some people's nature. And I think instinctually, we all have it. And then over time, our environments change some things, right? I'm reading this book by Bell Hooks called The Will to Change. And it talks about masculinity and the patriarchal system and all that. And it's just very interesting from a woman's perspective in terms of how she's experienced men over her history of life. And, being a man myself and, being cognizant of what behaviors I show up with, etc. And a lot of other things I don't show up with because of my upbringing and because of my environment. And that's due to very caring women I've had around me. And within that, I've still learned to be my own person, right? To be my own person who has a certain set of standards, boundaries, how I operate through life. And, a very interesting balance nonetheless. And I think about it, I'm like, some components of that are truly in my nature because I can't think of doing things otherwise. It just doesn't compute, right? And I think, again, when it comes to someone who is a mother or someone who's motherly, it's very interesting to see why and how and where that all comes from. And not everybody who is childless is incapable of being a present, nurturing, motherly figure. Now, if we go by the standard definition of what it means to be a mother or a parent, it means you have to have a child. But, even some people who haven't conceived the child themselves adopt. Okay? There are so many ways to be a nurturing, caring person, and so many ways to not be that. And I think a lot of times it does take a level of conscious effort, and intention, but also just repetition and the will to be those things. It's tough work. It really is tough work. And I tip my hat to anyone who has had to be or chose to be, a motherly figure. And they've just made it a point to show up, to be nurturing, to be a safe space, to be very caring and thoughtful, and enrich somebody's lives in such a way that it allows them to, take care of themselves. I think that's the best thing you can do, and it's tricky. And for all the mothers out there, I want you to just kind of figure out, if you haven't, what makes you happy. What do you enjoy doing? Some people truly enjoy just being a mom, and that's dope. And then there are other people who may have along the way lost the idea that they are a human outside of being a parent. And it's like, well, what do you enjoy doing? If you don't know, explore that. You're still human and you still have a life to live. And it's only fair to you to still learn how to do that. It is not selfish to have aspects of yourself that you still show up for and take care of, because indirectly or directly, you are teaching the person or the people that you are raising, that they are still able to have autonomy, to be caring and thoughtful without sacrificing their entire self or identity. It is not a betrayal when you show up for yourself. And again, it's a tricky balance, and anyone who's listening to this with the right headspace will understand exactly what I'm saying. I think it is so crucial to just understand what that looks like. And it's hard because society doesn't necessarily always encourage that either, right? You're a mother and that's it. And depending on what kind of mother you are determines, your judgment day. And, I know there's some people out there who are trying their hardest and still don't feel like they are getting the recognition that they deserve, or at least the space to breathe like they desire or need. And it can be tricky, but I want you to consider, how am I willing to parent myself? How am I willing to nurture myself? And sometimes this is even gender aside. There are moms out there who are doing double duty. There are dads out there who are doing the double duty of being both parents. And that's just a human trait, right? To be protective and caring at the same time. You can do both. You can do both. It doesn't need to be as divisive as society makes it, like pink blue. You can definitely do both, and I've seen people do both. And I think it's just great. I think it's great to just recognize the importance of being a nurturing person and also existing in a very nurturing community. It really does matter to have someone there who is just thoughtful of your feelings, your concerns, and just your improvement in life. Like, it matters. So yeah, this is one of those episodes where it's kind of like a, tipping my hat off to the mothers out there who are trying their hardest. It may not have come from the healthiest dynamics and are still looking to recreate that. And sometimes that's just simply a person's nature. And how cool is that? So yeah, this is just like a few things. It's layered, right? As mothers are. I am shouting out all the moms out there who have just been doing the damn thing, doing your absolute best. Shouting out all the aunts out there who have just been doing the damn thing and doing your absolute best. And shout out just the people out there who have made it a point to be nurturing in their lives and in their relationships and just doing their best. I hope you all learn the importance of being motherly and nurturing and caring to yourself as you do others. All right, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Happy Mother's Day. Take flight.